I'm Chris Carter. This is the Locked On Steelers podcast, and I want to talk about why the linebackers could be the key to the Steelers defense again, and how that ties back to the last time this Steelers defense was the elite of the elite. That and more here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show in your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Steelers fans, we don't have to deal with the offense and Brandon Ayuk and random TikToks today. So we're going to get into what I wanted to talk about on yesterday's episode, and that's what I think about these Steelers linebackers. Also, happy Juneteenth to all those who celebrate. But let's get into this, because I think with the linebackers, this isn't just about the traditional off-ball linebackers, the group, but I'm talking about everyone from Patrick Queen to TJ Watt. Literally, if your position says linebacker on it, I'm talking about this group, because them as a unit, I think, can be something as a group of linebackers that the Steelers haven't had since the Steelers defense was the elite of the elite, as I said, in the late 2000s to the early 2010s. If you remember, back in that run, Mike Tomlin's first 5 or 6 years, from 2007 to 2012, the Steelers ranked either first in either points or yards allowed in 5 of those 6 seasons, and twice they ranked first in both categories, and another 2 times they ranked first in one while ranking second in the other. That is elite of the elite. And listen, the Steelers defense of late has had elite seasons where they've finished top 5. To me, top 5, if you're a top 5 defense, you're elite for that year. But the Steelers defense of late hasn't had the run that defense had. And I think, and frankly, nobody really has. That's why that Steelers defense was so crazy talented. That's why it was highly regarded. That's why people called it the Steel Curtain 2 at one point. There was a lot of things there. But on that defense, and I think one thing that defense had that the Steelers haven't had again since that defense was put together were the linebackers to put the whole team together. And listen, they had several components outside of the linebackers. Troy Polamalu was a Hall of Fame safety. Casey Hampton was a bad dude at defensive tackle. Aaron Smith, Brett Kiesel. You had a lot of different things. You had Ike Taylor, Deshae Townsend, Ryan Clark, Chris Hope at one point, although he was before the 2017. But you get my point. They had lots of players there. But I think the linebackers were vital to what the Steelers did in that era, just like they can be vital for what the Steelers need to do in this era. You go back and you look at the linebackers from the off-ball guys like James Ferrier, Larry Foote, and a young Lawrence Timmons to the edge rushers like James Harrison and Lamar Woodley. That group brought the defense together. They were the connecting piece, again, from Casey Hampton, the defensive line, to Troy Polamalu in the secondary, that kind of was able to both put pressure on the quarterback and stuff the run, and help occasionally in coverage here and there, while sticking to it, while again kind of playing to their roles that kind of play off of everyone else's strengths. I think this group of linebackers can do a very similar thing for what the Steelers need to do on defense. And this isn't by any means saying that they're going to get the same stats and everything's going to line up perfectly. I'm not saying this is the late 2000s Steelers defense, but I am saying that I think that this group of linebackers can connect Minkah Fitzpatrick and Joey Porter Jr. in the secondary to Cam Hayward in the defensive line the same way that linebacker group did then. If you go back and you look at what Ferrier and that company did, oftentimes they were the run stuffers. They were the communicators. Even if they couldn't cover a guy, they passed him off to the defender who could in the secondary. They were very much the glue of that defense that kind of kept everything together. And that they're doing a great job at that allowed Troy Polamalu to go be the X factor guy that lined up everywhere on the field, because that Troy Polamalu knew and Dick LeBeau knew, hey, this linebacker unit, they're going to take care of all this other stuff. So you don't need Troy Polamalu to fill in the kind of the way that Minkah Fitzpatrick was trying to fill in and do all these other roles. He can just go where he feels is going to be the most dangerous part of the play and make something happen there. And that was a major asset that made the Steelers defense elite. Again, the elite of the elite at the time. Again, I look at this linebacker group. I look between Patrick Queen, Landon Roberts, and Payton Wilson, and eventually Cole Holcomb when he gets back healthy. That off-ball linebacker core has a lot of talent that can do these things. Patrick Queen can be a run stuffer. He can go sideline to sideline. He can help in coverage. And Landon Roberts, super run stuffer, physical guy. A captain-like player. Payton Wilson, athletic guy, can help in coverage. Cole Holcomb, if he comes back, he's a guy that can kind of be in between both of those. And again, that's four guys who I think could be really interesting there. And again, add in TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, who are already the best edge rushing duo. And then, oh, by the way, Nick Herbig, who looked really good for an edge rushing, reserve guy last year, and who's going to be growing. This has the chance to have a combination at linebacker that the Steelers haven't had again since that late 2000s team. And if this group can be something like that, again, not the exact stats, but if they can be as important to this defense as those linebackers were to that defense, that might be the key to unlock what the Steelers need to get back to being that kind of a defense that plays. And they're going to need it this year when they're in that gauntlet against the Bengals, against the Ravens, against the Chiefs, against the Browns. They're going to need this defense to do that. I mean, you think back to even the 2019 year, which I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I'm just trying to make sure I say this the right way. 2019, they ranked 5th in points and yards. 2020, they ranked 3rd in points and yards. 2019 was Devin Bush's rookie season where he played very well. 2020 was the year where they had Devin Bush for a little bit, and he was playing well before he was injured, and then he was injured, and I think came together. But you look at those, there was not dominant linebacker play during that era. It was solid. Devin Bush as a rookie was solid. There were some flashes of potential there. But I think that when you look at how those teams played, they kind of won with the linebackers kind of just being there. They didn't win because the linebackers were major contributors. And that might be the big difference for this team. Now, again, they're still going to need another guy. They're still going to need Cam Hayward to be healthy and to get back to being a major producer. They're going to need Keanu Benton to step up and Joey Porter to step up and Dante Jackson to be solid at where he's at, Cam Sutton and everything. Like, there's still a lot of things that need to happen. But if the linebackers do what they need to do, I think it makes it that much easier for all these other guys to lock into their jobs. Just like the linebackers of the late 2000s and early 2010s made it easier for Troy Polamalu to lock into his. And that's where I think this can get really interesting. We talked to both the inside linebackers coach, Aaron Curry, and the outside linebackers coach, Denzel Martin, last week. And I want to get to their comments because I think that they'll shine more of a light on what we're talking about here and how that can be a big difference maker for the Steelers in this upcoming season. So that's going to be up next. Stick with us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the app you can download right to your phone or go to the website, gametime.co, where buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be a stressful event. And Game Time is where you can book tickets to your favorite sporting events all year long. Whether you're looking to score big tickets for the next home game for the Pittsburgh Pirates to see Paul Skeens pitch, or you're a Steelers fan looking for tickets for next season, the best place to do that is with Game Time. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all your sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They give you killer deals, even on last-minute tickets, and they have a best price guarantee that can't be beat, while you save up to 60% off tickets when you buy last minute for sports, concerts, and so many other events. Plus, the best price guarantee from Game Time means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less somewhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference of those prices. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase, or go to their website, gametime.co. Terms and conditions apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We get back to talking about the Steelers linebacker group and why I think this group can be special, but also vital to the Steelers defense really getting back to being elite and maybe even setting up an era where they can get back to being the elite of the elite. But where I think this linebacker unit can really set itself apart is its athleticism. When you look at how they've assembled guys, we talked about how guys can play sideline to sideline. They can cover. They can cover, but they can also stuff the run. And that's something that I think a lot of teams have been struggling to figure out how to do, or how to assemble a whole crew that can do both of those things. I think the Steelers have been struggling with that. Even if you find guys if you normally find linebackers that are good in coverage, they probably can't stuff the run that well. If you find guys that can stuff the run very well, they're probably not that good in coverage. And that's always been a dilemma. It's like, what do you go for there at linebacker? And I think this group has the potential within its ranks to kind of get both done. You look at Patrick Queen. He has the ability to do both. You look at Elandon Roberts. He's not, elite in coverage, but he's solid in coverage, and he hits hard, and he still plays the run very well. And he can also kind of be another lieutenant on the field for the Steelers. He took on a leadership role last year. And then you look at Payton Wilson and what he brings to the table. He can be one of those cover guys, but he also has a good reputation for coming up and helping against the run. So there's a lot of different things working for you there. I want you to listen to what Aaron Curry said when we got to talk to him last week. He's the Steelers linebackers coach, and he works with these guys. Got a chance to catch up with him during minicamp. Here's Aaron Curry answering a few different questions here. Pay attention to what he says when he's asked about if this is the best group and who he compares them to. I think that's a very interesting point here, but here's a few minutes with Aaron Curry.
So we saw Payton Wilson do a lot at NC State. What does his versatility allow you to approach to add to what you guys can do on that?
I think it's just our job as a defensive staff to recognize his superpower and use it to our advantage. He's a fast, athletic guy that will play physical, that can also cover. And as we go through this thing, we'll find a home for him where we can use his superpower to our advantage.
Well, this is a good crop, good crew you have. This is about as the best you've had for a while, anyway.
This is a good group. It's a good group. I always remind people that my background, I was really trained by Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright. And this group has a very similar feel to it, where we can be responsible for a lot of plays being made. If we prepare properly, and if we get our minds right, take care of our bodies, we got a chance to be a really good group collectively.
We were talking to Terrell earlier, and he was saying that Queen's a 3-down backer, will wear a green dot, and Wilson has the potential to be a great dime linebacker. Is that taking Elandon Roberts off the field a little much? And didn't he have a great year? And what will he say about that? And does it matter?
No, I think I guess to my point, really, we do a good job as a staff is finding everybody's superpower and using it to our advantage. PQ is going to be a 3-down green dot linebacker, and he's going to play a lot, and he's going to make a lot of plays for us. And I think the way I lead my room is that everybody must be ready. So nobody gets kicked to the curb. Everybody gets prepared that they're going to get all the reps.
Elandon.
No, go ahead, Jim.
I just wrap on Elandon. He looked pretty good last year. I mean, he looked like a natural leader, and I don't know what else. What can you say about him?
I think those are fitting words. He had a good season for us last year. He is a natural leader. He's done a good job for us, and I think he's going to continue to do a good job for us.
So there's a lot there from Aaron Curry, but I thought it was interesting when he brought up Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright, because that was also his time with the Seahawks. And for him to compare it to that group, that, maybe that's him just hyping things up, or maybe him just trying to answer the question, and that's what came to his brain. But that's a heck of a group to compare him to. Bobby Wagner at one point was like the undisputed best linebacker in football. And I don't think Patrick Queen is that. I think that someday, if he keeps working, maybe he gets in that conversation. I think he's in like the best of the guys that aren't like Fred Warner, and the top era, and Roquan Smith, who took over the linebacker position for the Ravens pretty well when he got there and joined Patrick Queen, but they were the best 1-2 punch at linebacker in football when they were together. But I think Patrick Queen still has a long way to develop. He's still just 24 years old. And he has, plenty of NFL experience. I think a lot of this can really work out in his favor for things to come together. But I also think it's important to note that, like, it's not just, he brought up, it's not like he's saying that, that guy can be Bobby Wagner. He's talked about KJ Wright. He talked about this can be a group that works together, a group that has ways to complement itself. And those are really important to this Steelers defenses. Last year you saw injuries derail the entire linebacker situation. This year, you're hoping those injuries don't happen, but you at least have a couple more answers ready to go when those things happen. So I think that was interesting. Now let's listen to Denzel Martin, the Steelers outside linebacker coach, and what he was answering when we got to talk to him at minicamp. Here's Denzel Martin, the Steelers outside linebackers coach.
What a challenge to keep finding things to pressure two guys that are the best edge rushers duo in the NFL.
Oh, that's literally my job. You know what I mean? No one cares. It's just I got to find a way to get him free. Nobody gives the damn how it happens, but find a way to get this guy home. Find a way to, what are we seeing on tape? What are other people doing around the league? We do it all. We look at any and everything to literally exhaust every avenue we can to try to get that dude home.
Sounds like a lot of extra tape work.
Yes, sir. That's my job, though. There ain't nobody patting me on the back for that. You know what I mean? That's what I got to do. This is what I'm here to do, and I love doing it. It's my favorite. It's awesome.
How has Nick taken, his second year? Like, how have you seen him grow, or just like different kind of questions he asks?
You just see it in his maturity, man. He's just so much more mature. He just knows what's coming. You know what I mean? He knows what to expect almost at this point. The plays don't change. He just getting more fine-tuned with what he does, and you can see it out on the field.
Yes, sir. How motivated do you think TJ is by the no playoff wins in his career? He's mentioned it bothers him. Can you notice that?
Nah, it's not something that he's out there saying, oh, man, everybody wants it. You know what I mean? It's down from everybody. Everybody wants to win in the playoffs. You know what I mean? It's not something we're trying not to do. You know what I mean? It's something that we're always constantly thinking about every day. It's something we got to do. We know we need postseason success, and that's what we're going to keep working towards.
He said, who knows? He might be done in 2 years. He might be done in 10 years. Something tells me that you see him, and he doesn't look like a guy who's going to hang it up in 2 years.
Me neither. I agree. I agree. That guy there, man, I don't ever see him stopping. Football lovers like him, I just don't ever see it. I don't know when it's going to stop. It's his love for football that have to die, and y'all know him like I do. That ain't dying. So.
Thank you.
A lot of people talking about how the different additions like Queen, Sutton, and Sean are going to help Nick Fitzpatrick be in his role a lot better. But how does it help the edge rushers to have a more complete defense with all these different guys who are really talented to open up these guys?
Man, you get that middle push, that changes a lot for us, you know what I mean? Because a lot of teams will max protect us on the edge. We know that. We're not running from that. We know we're getting two on the edges every week so they can get a pass off, you know what I mean? So the better we get interior, which we are, we got the best D-line coach in the world, Carl Dunbar. Nobody's better than that guy. And what he teaches the guys on the insides and on the edges, it's just going to help us get better. And then the young talent we got, like the Keanu Bentons and guys like that, they're just going to keep getting better. It's fun to watch.
A lot of people will try to believe their biggest critique of Mike Tomlin is the lack of playoff success in the last 7 years. Mm-hmm. As a coaching staff, what do you think it is that he does the best that puts you guys in a position to make the playoffs and something that people that maybe make that argument overlook?
Just being himself. The way he builds up every single person in this building, not just coaches and players, anybody on the outskirts, anybody that helps us, the way how transparent he is, the way he'll talk to you about these situations and things that go on. He makes everybody better. He makes the coaches better. He makes the players better. It's just constant. And the guy's so football smart. You know what I mean? A lot of these guys are just CEOs in his position. I think he's the best football tactician that we have on the planet. You know what I mean? I just think he's the best. I really do.
So that was Denzel Martin finishing up there on Mike Tomlin. But I think it's important to get back to, part of what he's talking about with how the defense can all come together to make things happen. This defense is still going to be the reason the Steelers win games. As much as we're going to talk about the offense, as much as we're going to talk about Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and Arthur Smith, this is still going to come down to can the defense be an elite unit? If they are an elite unit, this team is so much better off. But if this defense struggles, it's going to be a problem. So what they need the best players to be the best players. They need their top guys that they're paying top dollar to be the big difference makers. That's where TJ Watt comes into play. And that's where, I don't think they should take things for granted. I don't think that they do take things for granted. I think the Steelers are in a position where they can say, like, look, this is an opportunity for to open up more spaces, more chances for TJ Watt to get after the quarterback, to get one-on-ones. And if he doesn't get one-on-ones, and he's still getting double teamed, that's going to free up somebody to go after and get quarterbacks. And I think that, again, that's where this linebacker group can be unique and comparatively similar to the Steelers of the 2000s, because remember, James Harrison went and was able to help in different ways. He wasn't just a pass rusher; he was also a run stuffer. And he was also able to help occasionally in coverage. And, he had his biggest play, easily ever in NFL history was a play that he made in coverage. If you go back, Lamar Woodley had a couple of interceptions. Granted, he was more of a defensive end than an outside linebacker, but by position, he was a linebacker. And so I think there's a chance for this Steelers defense to truly get back to playing that kind of way. I mean, you even look back to last year, TJ Watt had that game-changing interception against the Rams. Alex Highsmith had 2 interceptions that were in huge spots. They both can do that. Athletically, this group of linebackers between Watt and Highsmith and then Queen and Roberts and Wilson and those guys, this has the chance to be a very dynamic group just simply because of their athleticism, but also with their experience and what they're going to be doing and asked to do in this defense. And that part of it is going to be different because today's NFL dynamics themselves, the state of the game, are also very different from what it was 16 years ago, the last time the Steelers won a Super Bowl. But one thing's for sure, I think this is going to be a very fun group to watch. We'll learn how they play together. We'll see how they grow. And if they lock in and get it, watch out. I think this could end up being, when you consider TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith linebackers, because they are linebackers officially on the team, this could be the best linebacker unit in the NFL if things work out the right way. But you heard both Aaron Curry and you heard Denzel Martin both address young backups that they have on the depth chart, that they're very excited to see how they play moving forward. Let's talk about both those roles in the depth chart. And of course, we're talking about there Payton Wilson for the off-ball linebackers and Nick Herbig for the outside linebackers. More on them next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We'll be right back. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our episode here today. Let's get into what I was saying there about both Payton Wilson and Nick Herbig, both young players. We've talked to them on this show. You've seen our interviews with them. We'll certainly do that a lot in training camp too. They're both young players, athletic players, guys that get the mission of being part of a team, at least from how we've talked to them. They both seem smart with a lot of upside between the two of them. If you remember Nick Herbig, if maybe you forgot or you didn't pay attention to last year's training camp, that was a guy who was wowing people right away. He even was wowing TJ Watt with showing TJ Watt moves that he had, the ghost move that he has, Herbig has in his repertoire, to try to show him like, hey, like I'm trying to be a great edge rusher too. And there was a lot of appreciation for it. And Herbig came in and made some plays when he was asked to make plays last year. So I think he's growing fast. It'll be really interesting to see how fast he's going to go through this off season and how that will change his game and make him an even more regular part of the Steelers defense, and how that could boost things for the Steelers. So I certainly think Nick Herbig's a piece of this equation. But I'm really intrigued to see how Payton Wilson fits into things here for the Steelers, because when as I said, I studied him and I got to watch him in the ACC. I covered Pitt for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And when I saw him at NC State, I was like, wow, that guy's really good. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be a problem. And that's why I ranked him up very high. I think I put him on my top 50 players of this year's draft class, even with all the injury considerations taken into account. But I think that his ability to cover the pass and then his aggressiveness and how he stuffs the run, that both fits the mold of what the Steelers need long term. So he can develop into the guy that eventually takes over the linebacker spot, or is just the perfect pair with Patrick Queen as a starting linebacker. So what's also important in this isn't just the talent that these guys bring, but also the fact that Omar Khan got them the way he did and when he did. Because now you've positioned, Khan has positioned the Steelers to have middle to late round picks. There was a third round pick to get Payton Wilson. It was a fourth round pick to get Nick Herbig. There's no pressure on these guys to start right away because the Steelers have starters, so they can develop. But both address each position as being really good depth right now, but also potentially starting depth eventually for the Steelers, and that could be huge for what the Steelers really want to do with this unit, if they can get 2 young guys on rookie deals that play exceptionally well, that can be a big boost. And especially because right now, again, these starters are ready to go. Like Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt, they're not waiting on anybody. I think that, you throw in Patrick Queen, he's going to be interesting to see how he plays. But I think that, it's kind of obvious the Steelers aren't going to ask all of that out of Payton Wilson, but to take over the defense out of Payton Wilson. But I do think that the Steelers defense is going to eventually call upon him, and they're going to say, "Hey, let's test out. Let's see what you can do in certain situations." If he makes a couple big plays, look out, man. The Steelers defense is going to be nasty, and I think that they have a real potential to be an elite unit this year. Will they be the elite of the elite? We're not sure about that, but I think that the linebackers play such an important role in this. Everything that I'm seeing with how the roster is being constructed, how they practiced in OTAs and in minicamp, and what we're hearing from players and coaches, I am really getting the sense that the linebacker situation for the Steelers is top notch right now, and maybe even the best in the NFL when you consider Watt and Highsmith edge rushers. And I do think the Steelers defense will be able to take that big step up as a unit together. So lots to be excited about. Lots of stuff still to talk about, but I just wanted to get it off my chest and go through some of the things that I was looking at as to why I think this linebacker group can be the best of the best, an elite unit that puts the defense together. I think that a lot of that can work out. Everything adds up there. Hey, if this group does live up to the hype, we'll be right here covering it on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Locked On Steelers podcast. You can find me at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. You can also find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, breaking down your Pittsburgh Steelers right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Back tomorrow with more on your Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, I'm Chris Carter. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you then.